Have you ever wondered how pros actually use Sidechain to add that pumping effect to their music? Well, today I'll be breaking it down for you. Welcome back to Inverse Audio. As always, I'm 5X, and I'm finally bringing this long overdue video for you guys. If you've enjoyed today's video, consider giving it a like, smash the subscribe button, and leave a comment with what you want to see next. And without any further ado, let's get right in the video. Sidechaining is a production technique that's used in a wide variety of genres where an effect is activated by an audio track. The most common application for sidechaining is when we sidechain a kick to a bass. However, there are other applications and we will go over them. To understand sidechaining, we first have to understand why we do it and what it does. So let's break those down. So, why do we sidechain? The first reason is to make room for another track. In simple terms, it's to prevent them from crashing. Certain sounds will sit in the same frequency range as others, and it's important to address these issues correctly, otherwise you might end up with a bad mix. Number 2, to avoid phase issues. This one is slightly more complicated if you don't understand phase, but let me try and give you a quick breakdown. Phase is the relationship in time between successive states or cycles of an oscillating or repeating system. In our case, sound waves. Sound waves oscillate numerous times per second. Of course, depending on the frequency. A sine wave starts its journey at 0 amplitude, then it rises up to 1, falls back to 0, and then -1, and then it completes the cycle at 0 again. The issue arises when you have more than one frequency playing at a different degree of phase. Let's have a look when we slowly shift the phase of the second oscillator. If we shift it to exactly 180 degrees, the sound will completely cancel itself out. And the whole point of understanding this is because this can happen in your tracks without you even knowing it. If you were to layer a kick on top of a sub bass, for example, it can actually degrade the punchiness and bounciness of your track because the kick and the sub will slightly cancel each other out. And lastly, to achieve that pumping effect. You've probably heard that distinct pumping effect in many tracks, especially in electronic music. For example, when the kick drum hits, it ducks other elements like bass, creating a rhythmic pumping feel that can add energy and movement to your tracks. So, now that we roughly understand what sidechaining is, let's go over a few different methods that you might like to use. The first and probably easiest way of sidechaining is by using a compressor. You can set up a compressor on the bass track and sidechain the input from the kick. Every time the kick hits, the compressor ducks down the volume of the bass. This technique is great for creating space and ensuring that the kick punches through the mix. However, depending on what compressor you use, you might not have total control. Now anyway, let me show you how to do this technique. So first, I'm going to play a bit of the track for you. All the drums in here are from a sample pack. So I'll just play it from the build-up just so you get an understanding of what we're working with today. So yeah, pretty cool. It is a work in progress though, so apologies if it does sound a bit rough. So I do currently have sidechain applied. However, I'm going to completely disable it just for the purpose of this video and sort of redo it. So the first way of doing this sidechain is with the compressor. So the easiest way is to route all of your basses into one bus. Now the way to do this in FL Studio is these little green lines here. I already have these set up in my template. However, it's really easy to get these done. Essentially what you do is, if we're looking at the bottom here, you can just control click into a channel. You can do this with more than one channel at a time, just by holding control and click. And this will send the output to here, which will then go into the master. So I have a sidechain bus already set up. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is load up the Fruity limiter. Then the next thing, you're going to want to find your kick on the mixer. And we're going to want to sidechain the input. So you can do this by going to your kick, and then we're going to want to send it to the sidechain channel, which is where all the bass are collected. And to right click and sidechain to this track. That's basically sending a ghost version of the signal. No volume will actually be coming out of it, but the software will sort of recognize the input. So I'm just going to make this a bit bigger. So the first thing you want to do is go switch to the compressor setting. And you want to right click, and you should find your input that you sidechained to this. So in our case, it'll be the kick. If you find that your waveforms are going up, you just want to turn up the ceiling. And then next thing you do, you want to lower your threshold. Turn up your knee and turn up your ratio. And now we're getting that pumping effect. Now, the trick to a good sidechain is you should be able to feel it, not hear it. Now, right now I can hear the gap between where the bass is and then when the bass ducks down in volume, and then after the kick's finished, there's a delay in the bass volume going up. So this is what I mean is you're not always going to have the most control with a compressor. So you can play about with the release. And also with my sidechain, I do it manually. I do like to take it all the way to the floor, so my threshold would be always down. So yeah, that is how I would sidechain with the limiter. So the second technique, and this is the one that I use, is manual gain automation. For more precision, you can manually automate the gain. This involves manually lowering the volume when the kick is hitting. While this is more time consuming, it allows for a lot greater control, and it can also be a lot more useful for complex arrangements. So this is how I would sidechain and how I do it. First thing that I do is I use the kilohertz gain plugin, and I make sure it's set to the percentage mode because I do like to take it to 0 dB. You know, minus 30 is not minus infinity. So the first thing you want to do is you're going to load this on your sidechain bus once we sort of move it, and then go here and we create an automation clip. This should present us with a gain automation. This is literally just the volume. So you heard that sort of cut there. That's literally all you're doing. And what you want to do is you want to sculpt it around the kick. So if you zoom in into your waveforms, it definitely does help. So if you want to just let go of the snap, and you can hold Alt. And we're looking to get, you know, as close as possible to the length of it. So that's looking pretty good. And then you want to curve that in. And then what you can do is sort of cut the excess off. You only need the one, and then shift it in your arrangement. And if you want to quickly copy it, you want to hold Control up here, right click to deselect if you just do this where there's not an audio track, and then you want to right click to, you want to control click to select these, and then if you hold Control B, you will just paste it across the whole track. Now, a bit more of an advanced technique. So what you want to do is you want to copy the value here, so you've got the 50% exactly. The reason why we're doing that is because this can go to 200 volume, right? You don't want to make your bus twice as loud. So after you've copied it, what you can do is shift it to the left and paste that volume back in. And basically, just so it's not, and then drag this to 50. And what you're trying to do here is curve it down, just so there's not a sharp click like I've got here. It just ever so slightly curves down, so there's not like a sharp click in the volume. And then another optional thing, I know some people do this, some people don't. So if it slightly confuses you, don't worry. I basically sidechain my kick to my sub and my basses, and I only sidechain my snare to my basses. So I don't sidechain my snare to the sub. Now, the reason for that being, it's quite obvious, is because the frequencies just do not clash. So I've just loaded up a span here to show you what I'm talking about. So if we take a look at the sub, as we can see, it's obviously all very low frequencies, right? And then the snare, it sits right above it, so there's no need to do that. Yeah, I make my snare sidechain a bit shorter, so that way I'm only sort of getting the body of the snare, and that's what I'm sidechaining, because the other end of the snare is just white noise, and there's no point of sidechaining white noise to the basses. So yeah, that is how I manually sidechain. Let me just show you the differences between the sidechains. This is without any sidechain. It's a bit easier if I mute the kick and the snare. Hopefully you can actually hear and understand what you're trying to do with the sidechain. And then if we go to the limiter sidechain, this is what that sounds like. You know, they're very similar in my opinion. I just prefer to do it manually, and that's the way I prefer it. And then sort of the last way of sidechaining is by using an adaptive EQ. This method involves using an EQ to duck specific frequencies when another track plays. You can set an EQ to lower the bass frequencies of a pad when the bass plays, preserving the higher frequencies and avoiding a muddy mix. Plugins like Trackspacer 2 make this process incredibly easy by automatically ducking those frequencies that are coming in from the other sidechain track. The most useful application for this is probably with the vocals. If you sidechain the instrument bus, so all of your instruments to the vocal, and then have the vocal sort of cut down the frequencies of all the other instruments, it can be really good for when you have like a busy section and you just want the vocals to shine through a little bit more. So I've purposefully made the instruments in this section a bit louder than I had them before, just for demonstration purposes. And what you should hear is that the vocal is just sort of clashing, it's fighting for space, and then we're going to use Trackspacer 2 to fix that.
And I can't say no, I've been here before, thinking we will be alright. I can't let you go, all we're fighting for, who knows if it's wrong or right. I don't wanna lose this, kinda love. Let's go back to how we used to be before.
So yeah, it's not massively a problem, right? But it can be fixed. By the way, if you like the vocals, they're from Vocalify. Use code InverseAudio10 for an extra 10% off. The link will be down below. So the way that we would solve this issue is by, once again, routing the main vocal into the synth bus, which is where all the synths and instruments are. So if we do sidechain to this track, or if you just click on it, and then turn the volume down. And then on here, we are going to be loading up Trackspacer. Right, and then to actually set the sidechain, what you're gonna have to do is click on these cogs here and go to processing. And down here, sidechain, as you can see, if you right click, you'll be able to see main vocal, cool. And then if I actually play this to you, and so you can hear what it's doing.
And I can't say no, I've been here before, thinking we will.
So what it's doing is analyzing the frequencies of the vocal and essentially inverting them as a dynamic EQ on the synths. So immediately, you know, it's doing a lot. What we can do is actually cut off some of the frequencies that it's affecting, right? It's not going to be massively heard in the high end or below 200 hertz. So.
And I can't say no, I've been here before, thinking we will be alright.
And then if you click on this little thing, you can see that there's a release and an attack, so you can always play with that. But I think the biggest thing is just turning down the ratio to where it's not noticeable.
And I can't say no, I've been here before, thinking we will be alright. I can't let you go.
So yeah, it's a really easy plugin to use, and it, you know, works really well. I'll quickly play the before and the after. So this is before.
And I can't say no, I've been here before, thinking we will be alright. And I can't say no, I've been here before, thinking we will be alright. I can't let you go.
So yeah, it's not a perfect solution, but it's a really useful tool for when you are struggling to sort of make your vocals be, you know, easily audible in a very busy section. So when you have a lot of instruments going on, for example, it can be really useful to chuck it on. But yeah, that pretty much sort of is a basic explanation of sidechain and how to use it. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. I do apologize about how long it's taken for me to actually make this. If you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like, comment on the video what you want to see next. If you're interested in sample packs, mixing and mastering, or one-to-one tuition, then head over to the website. As always, guys, I'll catch you next time. Peace.